Welcome to Hoystory On Air, Season 1, Episode 12. It is November 17th, 2025. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. Had a long weekend. I spent probably a good hour and a half prepping the slides for today's show. So I hope this works out well for you. Again, thanks for watching. Thanks for following. I do want to make a point here to ask you to follow on my Substack. That's new. Put that up last Friday. Spent quite a bit of time on my first post there, kind of describing my my recent job hunt in recent years, which has been a depressing, woeful failure, I believe would be the proper description for it. Please go hoystories.substack.com, read that post, subscribe, please. Subscribe on each of these channels. There's going to be a lot of redundancy between them, but I could really use your help. So here's the situation, ladies and gentlemen. Here's what we're going to do this morning. So our first one this morning is our UC San Diego. UC San Diego sees students' math skills plummet. For the record, UC San Diego was one of two universities I applied to when I was a senior in high school. It was my safety school. I got into both schools I applied to because it was not cheap to apply to schools. The fee that they charge per school, I mean, I understand why they need to do it, but I wasn't applying to a dozen schools willy-nilly, didn't have the money. So I applied to UCSD and Cal Poly SLO. Got into both of them, chose Cal Poly SLO because it was far enough away that my parents weren't likely to pop in my dorm room, and it was the better engineering school. I think it's still the better engineering school. But UCSD, also very good engineering program. There was a difference between UCSD and Cal Poly, and the one difference was, though I was accepted into UCSD, and I mentioned this on Twitter last week when this story first popped up, I think I used the word probationary. That, I'm almost positive, wasn't the word that they used, because that smells of academic probation, which is, you're in trouble. I think it was provisional. I was provisionally accepted to the electrical engineering program until I could prove that I could pass a math class. That was their concern. I got a letter shortly thereafter saying I was no longer provisional because I'd passed the Advanced Placement Calculus AB exam, which is the first semester of college calculus, basically. That got me through 1/4 of college calculus up at Cal Poly. Cal Poly was on the quarter system. But so I say that because I kind of know math. This scares the bejesus out of me. And you wonder, what the heck happened? The number of first-year students in remedial math courses at the university surged to 390 in fall 2022, up from 32 in fall 2020. The remedial math course was designed in 2016 and only addressed missing high school math knowledge. But instructors quickly realized that many of their students had knowledge gaps that went back to middle or elementary school. Wow. I've got quite a bit of experience with this because after my journalism career, I went and worked for a small startup math textbook company. And a big part of the company's business, most of their focus was on community colleges. We did have we did have plenty of four-year universities who adopted our books as well. But the main target was community colleges. And a good portion of our textbooks that we sold to community colleges were remedial textbooks. This is stuff students should have learned in, frankly, elementary school. The lowest level introductory math book that we produced, and we were competing in this space. So other companies, the big ones were Cengage and Pearson, had books like this too, because we competed against each other with these. But I think the first chapter of the introductory math book was like place names and value, and numbers or values or something like that. Telling 100 versus 1,000 versus a tenth versus 100th. And those are community colleges. That should be acceptable to community college. You get into UCSD, you get into a UC school, and with some notable exceptions, namely Cal Poly, generally UC schools are seen as a higher tier than the California State University schools. Cal Poly SLO is probably the lone CSU school that's above those. San Diego State's business school is probably better than most UC schools, business schools, but to get into a four-year university and have knowledge gaps that should have been covered in elementary school, that's bad. And honestly, the politicians have not made this any better because a few years ago, at least in California, they banned community colleges from requiring what are basically no credit remedial math courses, even though the students need it. Community colleges have gotten kind of clever with getting around that because you still got to educate the students and they don't know the math. So they'll have a math course that's high enough, maybe it's pre-calculus or something that's credit, and they'll at the same time run students through a math lab or a math tutoring system that reinforces or sometimes for the first time teaches them the elementary and middle school and even high school math that they should have learned but didn't. The downside for the company I used to work for is that killed a lot of their business because you can't require students to buy a textbook for a course that, on a subject and a course that they're not getting any credit for. You can have them buy that, pre-calc book, but if they need an algebra book to help them pass the pre-calc course, you can't require the algebra book. And that was a serious challenge for this company. And it's a serious challenge for the kids. And, we can't hurt their feelings. Well, we need to educate them. But, politicians don't really care. And I'm not saying that the old way was necessarily the best way, but you can't pretend like the problem doesn't exist when it obviously does. Now, obviously, that only applied to community colleges, which means you get students who skip community colleges, go to a four-year university, and they're paying serious money to take a remedial course. Why? Because they need it. They shouldn't have gotten into the four-year school in the first place. And this is, where we run into another problem. So in 2024, the average high school math GPA for students in Math 2, the middle school level remedial math course, was 3.65, an A-. The kids were getting B's and A's, and they couldn't do the math. The elimination of standardized testing together with COVID resulted in a mismatch between students' course levels / grades and their actual levels of preparation. You think Harvard's the only place with grade inflation. There's a whole bunch of high schools with it as well. And, that's pressure from the politicians and whatnot to, let's, pass them along. You can't really hold kids back nowadays. I think you can hold them back once in elementary school, maybe. But, it's, I failed the class. I'm still going to be a junior next year, or, whatever it is. But a lot of the high schools, a lot of the classes are playing into this as well. We'll give you an A, and then you take a standardized test, and it's obvious that you should have failed. Here's some of their solutions to it. Again, they're going to try and initial target of no more than 300 first-year students in these courses by 2026, 2027. Good luck. I think that starts with your admissions department. Here's establish feedback methods with high schools, especially those with persistent mismatches between student grades and placement results. Hey, high schools, they're compiling a list. It's a nice and naughty list. It's who can we trust are telling us the truth about the students they're producing. That's what it is. It's growth in number of students with insufficient math preparation. Fall 2020, it was 32. That was Math 2. That's the middle school. By fall 2025, 8.5%. Math 3B, that's got to be high school. So, and no placement but needs math. You've got nearly 15%. You've got nearly 15%. That's 5.5. Yeah, 14%. With insufficient math preparation, who frankly should be at a community college. Or you don't require math for whatever their major is. I don't know. But this is bad. They gave out some examples of the questions. The percentage in red, the parentheses to the right are the grade level that the student should have learned this. And the percentage is how many of the students taking this test. And they frame this not as a you're an idiot test. They frame this as your instructors need this in order to customize the curriculum for students like you, blah, 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 blah. And they gave them donuts afterwards when they completed the test. I think they had 30 questions, 45 minutes. It should take 5-6 minutes. I mean, really, it would have taken me 5 minutes. I've substituted high school freshman algebra classes before, and I've told some students, hey, you've been doing algebra since first grade. I said, no, we haven't. And I show them a problem like the first one. It's usually even simpler than the first one. It's usually 7 plus blank equals 9. I'm like, put in a blank box or just do an underline. I say, ooh, now look what the underlines become or the boxes become. I put in the letter X. Voila! Algebra! 7 plus 2 equals blank plus 6. 1 out of 4 students got that wrong. Wrong! What the? Sarah had 9 pennies and 9 dimes. How many coins did she have? 1 in 5 couldn't add 9 plus 9. All but 1 or 2 were able to subtract 13 minus 8. Now, warning here, they were not allowed to have calculators. So they had to do this math the old-fashioned way. Yay. I can't tell you the number of times I've substitute taught in even honors, algebra or algebra 2 classes or whatnot. And I mentioned I passed the calculus AB exam. I will be very bluntly honest with you. I was getting like a C plus B minus in the high school class for the AP class for calculus. I got a 5, which is the highest score you can get on the calculus AB exam. I was at the bottom of the, near the bottom of the class learning the calculus. It was challenging for me. For the record, everyone in my high school calculus class got a 5. There was only one class. There was 20 some of us. Everyone got a 5. Credit to Miss Nodding's teacher. Great job. So when I substitute teach from time to time in a high school math class, I can usually do or explain the math up until calculus. I've forgotten too much calculus to be able to teach a high school calculus class. except for like the first week or two of the school, which I actually did this year. The power rule I was able to explain to the kids. Look, hey, makes it easier. They get down to here like this: if a equals -2 and b equals -3, evaluate ab squared minus ab. That's not a tough question. 2% of these students got it right. 142%. It's not many. That is scary. Yeah, and I suspect that UCSD is not alone. I suspect, this report was made public. It's what UCSD is encountering. I suspect you got the same thing at UC Santa Barbara, the same thing at UC Berkeley, the same thing at UCLA. Wouldn't surprise me in the least. It's what happens when you stop requiring standardized testing. And here again and this story is from June of last year. This is Voice of San Diego. It's an independent, nonprofit newsroom in San Diego. They do a lot of good work. Really appreciate them, based on how much the Union Tribune shrunk and all that sort of stuff. But San Diego Unified high schoolers getting great grades but troubling test scores. An analysis of thousands of letter grades from San Diego Unified high schoolers shows that far more students pass classes in subjects like English, math, and science than meet state standards on tests. They give some examples. School of Creative and Performing Arts, a magnet school. 96% of juniors pass science classes. Scroll down here to the third paragraph. That same school, 16% met those state science standards. So 96% passed, only 16% actually passed the test. At Lincoln, only 23% made state English standards. At Madison, 13% met math standards. Gaps of 80, 63, and 72 points respectively. It's Monday. I'm working on it. Big words. So this is one of the graphs they came up with, and it shows the disparity. This is math standards. There's one for English, there's one for science. You take a look at Lincoln High School down there. That's the one that has single digits passing the math, yet 74, 75% got passing grades. And if you take and again, these links will be in the show notes. I encourage you to check them all out, including one to there's a link directly to the UCSD report. So you can read that entire report. Some of it's a little dry, some of it's a little in the weeds. I think I hit the highlights, but if you're interested, I encourage you to check it out. But you'll notice that there are some that have less of a gap, and there are some where that gap, it's less of a gap, and they're shifted farther to the right. Frankly, the difference in these schools is their demographics. You look at these schools and it's like, okay, yeah, that's in a poor neighborhood, largely black. This is in a relatively wealthy neighborhood, probably lots of whites and Asians. Scripps Ranch at the second from the bottom, wealthy area. Lincoln High School, that is down in the southeastern part of San Diego. Hoover High School, that is really close to, it's eastern San Diego. Again, relatively poor neighborhood, large minority population. So you can tell a little bit from the school what its demographics are. One thing that may be at play is changes in how educators grade students' performance. San Diego Unified is part of a wave of districts that have ushered in standard-based grading. It places less emphasis on due dates and more on whether kids become proficient, often allowing students to make up assignments or retake tests. Here's the problem. And this especially impacts math. With math, if you are not, you learn the concepts, if you are not doing math problems like almost immediately to reinforce that, it's gone. I know when I was working for the math textbook company, there were lots of professors that we worked with who I'm not sure what the term was they used, but they basically reversed the homework system. Used to be in class, it's like, okay, let's go over, we'll go over the examples in the book, blah, 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 and your homework is to do such and such problems. A lot of professors, especially at the community college level, would flip that around. Your homework is to read the section and go over examples 1 through 4 or whatever, and we will do the homework problems in class so you can ask questions. So you can extend your abilities. So you can combine two different examples together. The parts of two different examples or together to and apply them in a new, unique way. I think a lot of them found that worked best. But those were kind of college students who needed this, stuff to move on with their careers and pass. If you've got high school students where, and I've encountered this, where, oh, I'll just do it at home. They aren't doing it at home. They're using AI to solve the problem. Sometimes AI gets it right, sometimes AI gets it wrong. And you can tell when a student's asked AI because you look at that, it's like, yeah, that's something AI would do. But even if you're allowing them, oh, well, yeah, you don't have to turn this in tomorrow, you can turn it in a month from now. Odds are that what you're getting turned in is some other student's work or AI, or Wolfram Alpha if it's math. Grades are one way that teachers establish expectation. If grading becomes very easy because of corrections, then that is effectively lowering expectations for kids. Well, yeah, because you got too many administrators who care more about passing the kids. And politicians, what's your graduation rate? And for kids who may not go any farther than high school, maybe that's okay if they're going to go into a trade or something. But, they still better know how to measure. So you're going to need fractions. Do basic math so you're not overloading a circuit or something. Yeah. There's nothing like walking across that graduation stage and making your family proud, and then going to college and thinking that an A or B grade was real and having to take remedial classes at the college level. It breaks a person. It breaks a person at that young age to realize they have not been intentionally, authentically taught. Yeah, I believe there are some students like this. Oh yeah, I got an A. I worked, I just turned it in. Maybe they think that's the way to get through life. In my own educational experience, and again, this was, to get into college here in California, you had to take 2 years of a foreign language. I lived in San Diego. I took Spanish. You had the high school I was at, you had 2 options. You had German or Spanish. German teacher, I knew, my family knew the teacher that taught German at the high school. Nice guy, but it's German. Not particularly useful except during Oktoberfest, and then not even then. Spanish, useful. So I took 2 years of Spanish. I go to college. The journalism program requires you to take 1 year of a foreign language. Again, like Spanish. It's California. I can use Spanish. Spanish will be useful. So I took 1 year of Spanish. I asked people, I mention this to kids sometimes too, how much do you think 2 years of high school Spanish, how quickly was that covered in college? And I thought that would get me through the first quarter. I thought 2 years of high school Spanish would get me through the first 10 weeks of college, because I knew college was, it was more difficult, it was more challenging, it required more of you. But I thought 2 years would get me a quarter. 2 years did not get me a quarter. It did not get me 2 quarters. It did not get me the entire year. It got me 6 weeks. They covered everything I had done in 2 years of high school Spanish in 6 weeks. Summer break, I made a run down to the high school because they were kind of still in session when I got out, and I confronted my Spanish teachers. I mean, it's supposed to be a college prep class. I realize you teach to the lowest, denominator, unfortunately. But 2 years with you guys got me through 6 weeks. So I understand where these kids are coming from. We need to do better. Do I have solutions? Maybe I got solutions, maybe I don't know. I've got ideas. I got things that should be tried. I think this whole every kid needs to go to college thing is a joke. I think making high schools do that for decades, including while I was in high school, it was okay for me. But I think there's tons of kids that were ill-served by that belief. Trade schools are great. If I could do something like that, I'd probably be gainfully employed, even here in California. Instead, I'm talking to you. Speaking about people who need education. President Trump. White House posts this link to this Breitbart article. Breitbart used to be useful. Andrew Breitbart was alive. Since then, it's garbage. One of the most beautiful words in the dictionary. This is from last Thursday or Friday, 16th. That one's yesterday. The one on the left, I think, is from Friday. One of the most beautiful words in the dictionary, tariffs. Breitbart headline. Fed study vindicates Trump trade policy. 150 years of evidence show tariffs lower inflation. Heroin use lowers body weight. If you've never seen a fat heroin user, doesn't mean heroin's necessarily a good idea. And then J.D. Vance, who when Hillary Elegy came out, respected him immensely. There are lots of Republicans I respected more before they bowed the knee to Trump. Because to bow the knee to Trump, too often it requires you to sacrifice your self-respect and brain cells. And J.D. Vance as well. Geiger Capital says PPI, which is the Producer Price Index, in June came in lower than all 50 forecasters in Bloomberg's survey predicted. It's almost like the economics profession doesn't fully understand tariffs. Well, yes, they do. There's a reason why we've generally moved against having tariffs on everything. It's because they screw things up. They don't work. They are not an efficient method of improving the economy or even gaining money. They're talking, Trump's talking now, I'm going to give a $2,000 tariff refund to everybody. It's like, well, why do you need to do that? Why? If it's the other guys, if it's the other country paying the tariff. No, they aren't paying the tariff. We're paying the tariff. Sweeping new analysis of tariffs policy this is from the Breitbart article. Spanning 150 years suggests the economic establishment may have fundamentally misunderstood how tariff affect prices and employment. We find that a tariff hike raises unemployment and lowers inflation. Raises unemployment. That's not good. That's not good. Well, inflation goes down because people can't afford squat because they don't have a job. Can't believe we're playing this game. Uh, on the there's a correction or a reader's comment on, and this is from the first Trump thing touting tariffs. Important context missing. The study shows that tariffs lead to lower economic growth and job losses. These, in fact, then in turn drive less demand and lower price levels due to the weakened overall economy. Yeah, things we knew. Trump didn't know. David Bahnsen, who does some writing and a podcast for National Reviews, added this comment to a quote from White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt's touting this study, who wants to tell her, Ms. Leavitt, that is not what the study says. It says exactly what all cogent economic thinkers have been saying this entire time, and I will add that I have written repeatedly in his website, that tariffs push prices where there is elasticity. So if you can get a widget from a country that has no tariffs or domestically versus one that does have tariffs, then you get it from the cheaper one. So it can lower prices that way. But it doesn't do it everywhere. Then it compresses economic activity, creating a deflationary aftermath from lower employment, lower wage growth, lower capital investment, and lower profit growth. This is not a report you want to be touting. And how do we know that Bahnsen's right and that Trump and Vance are wrong? Well, because the same day they're touting these tariffs, Trump goes and scraps tariffs on beef, coffee, and tropical fruit in a push to lower grocery store prices. Hold on, we got a cat or a kitten. Let's see if that'll get rid of him. If Trump is, if these tariffs are so great, then why in the world is he canceling them? Well, because they are raising prices. He knows they're raising prices. People are telling him they're raising prices, which is not good. So, thanks a lot, Trump. I guess we should at least be happy that he responds to these sorts of concerns rather than Biden, who seemed to double down on the stupidity that he ran. We are now going to present your terrorists in Congress. Rashida Tlaib, I think she was holding up a sign. I think this is a photograph from when Bibi Netanyahu was speaking before Congress. Her sign did not say, "I love Hamas," but it should have. Twitter account Eisenberg55 notes that over the weekend, Rashida Tlaib introduced a genocide resolution condemning Israel. He notes the genocide resolution introduced by Rashida Tlaib never mentions 10/7, never writes Hamas, and the first official date noted is October 9th. The reason why Israel entered Gaza is erased from the narrative. Shame on the members of Congress who signed on. More to come on this. And here's one of the whereases in their resolution, wanting to condemn Israel for genocide. Whereas, since October 9th, what happened on October 7th? What happened 2 days earlier? Doesn't exist. The Israeli government's blockade and siege of Gaza has cut off essential life-saving resources, blocking nearly all food, baby formula, and humanitarian aid from entry and severely restricting access to clean water, fuel, and electricity. Happens when you start a war and then start getting your ass kicked. Excuse my French. Here is our parade of horribles. The reps who signed on to this: Becca Balint, Vermont at large; Andre Carson, Indiana; Greg Caesar, Texas; Maxine Dexter, Oregon; Maxwell Frost, Florida; Jesus Chuy Garcia, Illinois, Al Green, Texas, Pramila Jayapal, Washington, Henry Hank Johnson Jr., Guam Tip Over, Georgia, Ro Kahana, California, Summer Lee, Jim McGovern, AOC, Ilhan Omar, no surprise there, Mark Pocan, Ayanna Pressley, there's another club member, what do you call them? What do you call them? The squad. Delia C. Ramirez, Latifah Simon, Nydia Velasquez, and Bonnie Watson Coleman. All classy individuals. It'd be a better world if they were doing what I'm doing, frankly, or scrubbing toilets. That's honest work too. We'll see. If you don't get your friends to watch the show, otherwise, I'll start doing the in real life streams on Twitch, and it'll be me scrubbing toilets. Whereas, and this is another one of the whereases that I saw, whereas as a result of the siege, more than 90% of the population of Gaza has been facing acute food insecurity since December 2023. And whereas since August 2025, over 500,000 people are experiencing famine and catastrophic levels of food insecurity, at least 455 recorded malnutrition-related deaths. So of those 500,000 people who are experiencing famine, 0.091% have actually died. This is my troublemaker. This guy's name is Jack. You can see he has two eyes. When he came to us as a kitten, he only had, one of them was like closed and really infected. So we called him One-Eye Jack. Jack causes problems. So we're going to put Jack down. And we're going to scare him by blowing compressed air at him. And there he goes. Okay. That's 0.091% of those 500,000 people experiencing famine have turned into malnutrition-related deaths. For the record, I don't believe these numbers. These are numbers that the Gaza Health Ministry, which is Hamas, puts out. But even they can't spin this crap. Yeah. Speaking of bad elected officials, we're going to move on. So this, and I briefly mentioned this story last week. This is singer Tish Hyman. Looked at some of her music for the first time, never heard of her before. Went on YouTube. It's not bad. It's not great. But it's not bad music. It's something I might listen to if I was in a coffee shop or a club and she was singing. I wouldn't walk out, or I wouldn't plug my ears. It's okay. But she was in a Gold's Gym, and she got evicted from the Gold's Gym. She got her membership canceled because there was a dude in the women's locker room with his penis out. And she complained. There's video of her just, complaining. Went kind of viral. I mentioned this last week, highlighting a New York Post article where they tried to use this guy who says he's a woman's pronouns, and it was butchering the English language. They and their. It's like, who are these? I thought there was just one guy, with his pants down in the women's locker room, but now they're saying they. So was it more than one? No, it was just this guy, but he's got his pronouns. And we have to play along with it. So Tish Hyman's black. She is a lesbian. Both those things, fine. Whatever floats your boat. But a black lesbian also means, especially in California, she's a Democrat. Now she's got problems because of where the Democratic Party is. So she goes from LA, one of the candidates to fill the soon-to-be vacated seat currently held by Nancy Pelosi. And odds are, this being San Francisco, this guy's going to win, is a guy named Scott Wiener. He has been a state senator. He's a bad state senator. But she went up there and to his town hall and asked a question. Here's her little tweet on it. Had a chance to have a conversation with Senator Weiner. It was an honest one. I am hopeful this is the first of many conversations we will have regarding women's safety. Senator Weiner said he likes working with fresh young people and is open to ideas. Ms. Hyman, he's gaslighting you. And you should realize it, but she has not come to grips yet with the reality of where A, most of the Democratic Party is today, and B, where Scott Weiner has been for so long and will never leave. So over at Real Clear Politics, so you don't have to watch this stuff, they have a transcript. Tish Hyman says, Senator Weiner, as the only black lesbian here, that's, black, maybe, she may be the only black lesbian there. That may be true. Can I please ask you a question? Because I flew here to do that. So she flew up, didn't use the bullet train. Bullet train's tomorrow. I think I'm going to do something on a bullet train tomorrow, because there was some news released on that. Anyways, no bullet train. As a lesbian woman who was attacked in a women's locker room at Gold's Gym this week by a self-identifying trans woman with a documented history of domestic violence, I'm deeply concerned about women's safety in female-only spaces. Again, referring back to that article I mentioned last week, this guy, when he was a guy, beat the snot out of his wife or girlfriend, I'm not sure which it was, broke her jaw, compound fracture, which means it broke skin. Her jaw was poking out of her skin. He got a year, 9 months or a year in jail for that. And then he now identifies by her name. He took her name as his trans woman identity. Hyman continues, what would you say to women who are seeking assurance that their safety will be protected from men who, by California law, can self-identify as women and enter women-only spaces, sir? Please tell me. And here's what you expect from Scott Weiner. Yeah, so we want, everyone to be safe. We also know that we have trans people, both men and women, who are men and women. And so, if you're a trans woman, you're a woman. Trans women are women. California's going to send this guy to Congress. I bet. I should probably put money on that in the online betting things that you can bet on. I should have put money on Biden pardoning his son, because I knew that was going to happen too. Yeah, we're going to send this guy to Congress. He'll fit right in with the squad and the left of the Democratic Party. Trans women are women. And she attempts, and Hyman pushes back on this, but yeah, that's what you get. That's what you get. I saw this, and this brought up a couple things. First off, I want to emphasize that Scott Weiner is truly one of the worst elected officials we have ever elected to the California legislature. And when you look at the legislation, and he's gotten it passed, he's effective, but you want to look at what happens here in California when you've got a supermajority of Democrats, and Democrats pandering and running this sort of garbage. So among Weiner's legislative accomplishments, new California law reduces penalty for knowingly exposing someone to HIV. HIV is a public health issue, not a criminal issue. California State Senator Scott Weiner said in support of the bill, which takes effect January 1st. Now I know medicine has come very far on this. HIV is no longer a death sentence. But it is you have to take this medicine the rest of your life sentence. And you can reportedly nowadays get it down to an undetectable level and you won't spread it if you have, sex or swap blood or something, if you do something dangerous with someone who's HIV positive. But this was passed when we hadn't quite gotten to the point where you could get it down to a point where it was undetectable. It's still even to this day, you got to take medicine for it for the rest of your life if you get it. It's not like the other sexually transmitted diseases that can be treated, and after antibiotics or whatnot, you're done until you catch it again. This is not that. And there have been cases in California of people who were HIV positive and purposely, not just negligently, but purposefully getting other people the disease. That should still be something more than a misdemeanor. Here's another nice one. You've heard of the Romeo and Juliet law. Well, that apparently affects gay people even more, because gay men in their 20s like gay boys, or boys they would like to introduce to the culture. They like them young. So he got passed 2020 a bill that would exempt from mandatory registration under the Act a person convicted of certain offenses involving minors if the person is not more than 10 years older than the minor, and that offense is the only one requiring the person to register. This got a lot of predators off the state's sex offenders list. Yeah. And this is the one that really grabbed me because of the next thing I'm going to show you. Senate Bill 357, this was passed and signed by Governor Gavin Newsom, classy guy. Frankly, him approving stuff like this is what should doom his presidential hopes. You think of the way that they've been handling the rebuilding and whatnot, Pacific Palisades down there. I think it's been 10 and a half months since the fires. The first home got rebuilt. 10 and a half months, first home got rebuilt. Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass said we're going to cut the red tape for rebuilding in this area. They haven't. But Newsom passed this one. This bill would repeal those provisions related to loitering with the intent to commit prostitution and would make other conforming changes. The bill would also authorize a person convicted of a violation of loitering with the intent to commit prostitution to petition the court for dismissal and sealing of their case and resentencing. So this was retroactive as well. Why is this an issue? Well, it's an issue because we're now here 3.5 years later, almost. And 3 weeks ago, the New York Times Magazine put out a heartbreaking article. I'm going to put up I'm going to double check and make sure in the link dump below this, I put in a gift link so you can read this whole thing. It is devastating. And I've cropped this photo because it's way too revealing. Can anyone rescue the trafficked girls of LA's Figueroa Street? Inside the effort to pull minors from the Blade, one of the most notorious sex trafficking corridors in the United States. You read this story, this is heartbreaking. Most of it follows this girl named Anna. She seems like a bright young lady. She seems she's had a tough childhood. She seems pretty smart. But your heart's going to break for her. I want to highlight some parts of this. So, Anna, paced on the sidewalk at 68th and Figueroa, her front teeth missing, an ostomy bag taped under her hot pink lingerie. That already tells you she's had a hard life, right? She's working as a prostitute. The highlight down there. Anna was 19, but the girls on the street reminded her of herself and her sister when they were first put out on Figueroa for sex. She had been 13, her sister 11. These are children. This blows my mind. And what's been happening down there? Jump forward a little bit. Over the years, the blade became much busier than when it started. More girls, more customers, more traffickers idling in their Hellcats and Porsches on the side streets, watching to make sure their girls didn't hide any money and didn't snitch. Anna had seen the blade expand from 3 main intersections of Figueroa to more than 3 miles. She had met girls brought in from the East Coast and the Deep South, and there sometimes seemed to be 4 times as many minors as before. Easy to spot by their over-the-top makeup and unsteady gait. Police helicopters Anna used to notice hovering overhead with searchlights seemed to become infrequent. Eventually, she said, they disappeared completely. For the 77th Street Division, which covers the northern half of the Figueroa corridor, prostitution had always been a problem, but in recent years, the officers had seen the magnitude of child sex trafficking explode. Part of the boom happened during the pandemic. Many girls out of school and immersed in social media where traffickers lurk. Teachers who would ordinarily follow up on absences or report signs of neglect could not. Why? Because California stayed locked down with no kids in classrooms for longer than just about any other state. I should know. I was sitting in one of those classrooms as a substitute. I was in there while the regular instructors kind of taught the class remotely. Why? Because they had, compromised immune systems. One was 70-something, he was retiring, no need to take that risk. Another one was a younger guy, but he had health problems. And so I was the person who sat in the classroom. I'd help teach sometimes, but yeah, kids fall through the cracks, especially in a district as big as LA's. No shock there. As trafficking grew, the means to deal with it shrank. In 2021, the police department's Central Human Trafficking Unit was disbanded following budget cuts. Good job getting your priorities straight there, Los Angeles. And then here's the kicker. Here's where we get Scott Wiener and Gavin Newsom. Their jobs grew even more challenging when California repealed the law allowing the police to arrest women who loitered with the intent to engage in prostitution. It was intended to prevent profiling of black, brown, and trans women based upon how they dress. But when it was implemented in January 2023, the thing I showed just said it was passed in July of 2022. Most laws, if they aren't an emergency, then take effect January of the following year, January 1st of the following year. So, implemented in January 2023, the effect was that uniformed officers could no longer apprehend groups of girls in lingerie on Figueroa, hoping to recover minors among them. Now officers needed to be willing to swear they had reason to suspect each girl was underage. But with fake eyelashes and wigs, it was nearly impossible to tell. One girl told Vice officers that her trafficker had explained things succinctly. "We run Figueroa now," he said. Again, look at the link dump below this. It's especially available if you're seeing this on Facebook or Substack or something. It's more available on, it's easier to access on YouTube. So please go to youtube.com/@Hoystory to check out that link dump and check out that article. It is heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. Anna's story may have a happy ending. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. It's way too early to tell. There are people out there who are trying to save these girls. Pray for them. Pray for them. But as hard as it is to do, I really do encourage you to check out that New York Times Magazine article. Sadly, that's what Scott Wiener and Gavin Newsom have wrought. They've made it more difficult. Let's reduce the stigma from sex work. Well, congratulations, you've empowered sex traffickers. You're willing to sacrifice young girls, and in some cases young boys, to sex traffickers to do what they do their evil. Shouldn't be a shock. Unintended consequences. Shouldn't be a shock. It's happened time and time again. This sort of thing should absolutely destroy their political careers. It will not. You know what you're going to get. Thanks for watching. Please, again, follow me on social media. Really use your help with that. Again, hoystory.substack.com. There's free subscription there. More stuff's going to pop up there as I continue to do this. You have the option there to subscribe. It's $5 a month. If you'd like to do that, that would really help me. If I can, because honestly, the checks from the Jews are not coming through. Despite people say, "Oh, you're Israel," whatnot. I'm not getting paid. As I noted over the weekend, I'll bash Nazis for free. Jews don't have to pay me, though I do accept tips. So, thanks for being here. Thanks for joining me. Please, again, follow me on social media. Have a great day. Hope your Monday goes well. Thanks for joining me.